In this video, we're going to be getting the center differential out of the Redcat Machete and putting in some thicker diff fluid to help control power delivery between the front and rear wheels. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Troy. This is Roadside RC. You'll tend to find me bashing or crawling or drifting or racing, plus doing product review videos and how-tos. In today's video, Redcat Machete on the workbench. Let's get to it. With the body off, we can see in order to get into all of this in here, we're gonna have to get into, it looks like this top cover and then onto the bottom. It looks like we have a few screws here that are holding that center diff in. So we're gonna get all of those screws up to help free up all of this around here for this access. With the center brace out, top screws out, bottom screws out, you still can't lift up this center differential or anything to get everything out. You have to come in right here. There's a very small set screw in here, and it's not 1.5, it's not 1.3. I don't know what size it is. This says it's an 050, I think that's in inches, so 050. Redcat, I don't know why you made that so small. You could have made that a 1.5. We all have 1.5s laying around. But once you get that all the way unscrewed, it comes out, and then this coupler basically will come off there, and now you're starting to get all of this actually loose. The front one's a little tight to get to, but you can get to it right in here like this. At this point, your whole center diff motor, whole assembly here is free, but you need to be careful because that fan motor is still attached. And of course, your motor wires are still attached too, but this is the one that's going to catch you out. You're going to end up ripping it out. Now to get to the rest of the center diff in here, it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 screws that will separate this whole halves here. So I'm going to get my handy dandy electric screwdriver and we're going to get to work. Word of warning here, these 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4 right here, they are very, very long, and in there was some really serious Loctite. So be very careful as you take them out. Very thankful that they are at least 2.5 millimeter hex, because otherwise they might have stripped. They were very difficult to get out, so be careful with those. Now that they're out, we should be able to take this apart like this, and I lost a washer. Ruh-roh. All right, mystery washer, I believe goes here. It's the only place that makes any sense. It actually feels like it almost indents into the case right here. But mystery washer fell apart as I took everything loose. All of these others are screw holes. There's no reason for a washer to be there. Washer won't fit over the end here with the bearing. Doesn't make any sense for it to be on the center diff. So the only thing I can think of is if you look right here, the spacing right in here between this main gear and this reduction gear that we have in here is really tight, and so they're wanting to make sure that this is pushed over this direction as much as possible, and we're not, you know, having those gears hit each other. And so that is why this is here, is it pushes up on the end of that gear. That's my guess. Watch out for it as you take your center diff apart. And of course now the center diff comes right out. No issues whatsoever. Watch this little bearing that keeps trying to run away from me. I'm actually going to stick it over here so it doesn't fall off anymore. Now onto the diff itself. 4 simple screws, and we're going to get this whole ring gear off. And that is exactly kind of what I thought was happening here. So if you can look at it, there is an oil in this differential, but there's basically nothing. From how the car was driving, from how the front tires were ballooning, I thought that this was empty, and yep, there it is. That bad boy is, it's not dry. There's definitely fluid in there, but man, that is not going to provide any kind of solid diff action at all. It's going to let power go whichever direction power wants to go. So we need to fill this up, and we're going to fill it up with some thicker fluid. To be clear, you need to choose what weight oil you want to put into your differential here. The thicker you go, the more locked it feels. Typically that means a little more air control, a little bit more controllability in the air for doing backflips and stuff like that. It typically means more even power distribution front and rear, less ballooning of the front tires while the rears are not. Typically, the thicker you go is probably going to be worse for racing, worse for traction and handling in that kind of a situation. So I was thinking something along like the 200 to 400,000 thick range. And it turns out I must have used all that, because what I do have is a small bottle of 100,000 and a bottle of million. So this might be too light for what I want to do. This is like X-Max power too thick. I'm going to mix them together and we're going to see what happens. Edit. Note to self is that if you're going to use million weight, you got to plan it like a week in advance and set it upside down so that it actually comes down. Otherwise, it just sits there and it doesn't move. So we're going to use all the 100,000 and wish it the best of luck. Diff is all back together. You just line it up, screw it together nice and carefully. You might get a little bit of fluid squished out. If you're really worried about topping your diff off max fill, then you want to take this set screw out, and as you put this gear in, you'll let air and a little bit of fluid come out. I didn't fill mine like all the way to the top, so I did not worry about that. Now I'm going to get all this stuff put back together, and I'm going to give you any tips or tricks or hints as I put it back together that I find along the way. Now you remember these miserably long screws with all the thread lock on them as we were taking them out of this case? I'm guessing you're going to want to put a little bit back on there. I'm thinking Redcat knew what they were doing when they put some Loctite on there. So as you put them back in, I'm going to suggest that you do the same. Make sure as you try to line up the center diff with these drive shafts, you have to roll the vehicle a little bit. You have to get that hole in the drive shaft to line up with the differential itself. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get that set screw in. Speaking of that set screw, funny thing, it doesn't stop. You can actually just keep screwing the thing all the way in until it comes out the other side. So be really careful with that. Center it. Not super impressed with that. I think that could work its way loose and end up swinging one way or the other. Honestly, what I'm going to do is put a piece of tape around the whole thing to make sure that it kind of holds it in place. That doesn't feel awesome right there. All back together, went together really smoothly. You know, note these little pieces here, these little set screws going in there. Center chassis brace, easy cover, diff screws in the bottom, pretty easy to go. So I hope this video was useful for you if you're looking at getting at that center diff. I think it's something that you're going to have to do when you get to this Redcat Machete is probably drive it first, see how it drives. If you see those front tires really ballooning while the rears aren't, it needs some center diff fluid. If you have any questions about what I did here today, or if you're in it and you need some help, leave those down in the comments section. I'll do my best to answer them. If you're curious about anything else that I've done to the Redcat Machete, there is a playlist off to your right. You can go over there and check it out. We'll see you in that video. Thank you and goodbye.